Now, there's probably 1,000,001 different scenarios on where and why and when you may want to allow some kind of front-end form submission to your WordPress website. In this video, we're going to take a look at two very common and popular examples. The first is adding in a testimonial. We're going to use a custom post type with custom fields, and then we're going to add in through a front-end form, get it reviewed before it's actually displayed on the website. The second is if you wanted to create some kind of form submission to allow posts to be added to your website, again to be reviewed before they're added. So this could be in the form of a front-end dashboard, something really simple, something really advanced. The basics we're going to cover in this video should get you up and running, and then you can move on to more complex and comprehensive examples. Now for today's video, we're going to be using Gravity Forms, who've kindly sponsored this video. Now as always, no opinions, just simply going to demonstrate how you can use Gravity Forms to be able to add in this front-end form submission option, and then how we can use it as part of our web design. So let's kick things off with the dynamic testimonials and how we can set that up. Let's take a quick look at an example. You can see here we've got our testimonial page. We've got our title for our testimonial, we've got the testimonial itself, we've got the image of the person that submitted it, their name, and their position in whatever company they're working for. So we want to create a very simple way of allowing people to add their testimonials but be approved by an admin on the website before they're displayed. Now obviously it's an optional step, but I would recommend it. So we've got this submit testimonial option at the top. This could be on the same page if you wanted to, or a separate page, however you want to handle it. So this is our add new testimonial section. So all we need to do is fill out the relevant information, submit it, and then we can take a look at the approval process. Once we've finished, just hit submit testimonial. And there we go, there's our success message. Now we could redirect this to another page. There's lots of different things we can do, and I'll show you how you can do that in the settings when you create your forms. Now inside our dashboard, we're going to go over to the testimonials, which is our custom post type. Check out all testimonials, and there's my new testimonial, which has been set as pending. And if we're happy with it, we can quick edit and we'll say we're happy with this, and we'll say it's now published and update. On our testimonials page, there's our new testimonial with everything in place. It's pretty cool, very easy to do. So let's take a look at the back end and how we'd set all of this up for ourselves. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that we've got Gravity Forms Pro installed, and we're going to be using the Advanced Post Creation add-on. So the Gravity Forms plugin and add-on installed, we're also using Advanced Custom Fields, the free version, and we're using that to create a custom post type called testimonials. That's using the standard title, description, and featured image, so we can pull in that data. And we're also set up a field group, which adds in some additional fields for us. So we open the testimonial fields up. You can see we've got author's name and author's position, which is just simple text fields. Then we're going to be using Bricks Builder to output the information, but you don't need to use Bricks Builder. You can use anything that allows you to output dynamic information. So that could be Elementor Pro, it could be Brizy, it could be Generate Blocks. Anything that allows you to do that will work perfectly fine. Okay, so with the groundwork set up, let's go and take a look at creating the form now and setting everything up inside Gravity Forms to be able to add this content in on the front end. We're going to come up to the Forms option on the left-hand side and choose New Form. This will give us then a range of pre-built templates. So if you wanted to add a simple contact form or advanced contact form or PayPal checkout forms, all manner of different types of forms, you could use these templates as a starting point. It's very simple. You can preview any of these to see what they're going to look like. This will show you exactly what that will look like on all the relevant fields. And then you can simply just choose that template and start working, making any tweaks that you need to. We're going to go and start with a completely blank slate though, for this example. We'll choose blank form. We'll give this a name. If you want to add a description, you can do it. And if you get a lot of forms, this is going to be useful. Or if you want to have things that you reuse in the future, again, you can add a description. We'll click Create a Blank Form, and now we're taken into the form editor. So let's take a quick look at this. On the left-hand side, you can see we've got the main area where we'll drag and drop our relevant entries into. At the top, we've got settings and entries, and we'll come back to these a little later. You can also switch between the different forms that you have as part of your setup. And on the right-hand side, you can see we've got our standard fields, advanced fields, post fields, pricing fields, and so on. Inside there, we've got different widgets. So this is very similar to what you'd expect if you're using any kind of page builder like Elementor, Bricks, and so on. We can drag and drop these in, set the settings we need, and build our form visually in any way that we want to. Because we were going to be working with a custom post type and we want to use some standard WordPress fields, what we can do is we can come down to the options for post fields, and you can see we've got title, body, excerpt, tags, and so on. These are the things you'd normally expect to see when you're working with standard posts. You also notice we've got custom field. Now we're going to come back to some of these a little later, so we're going to start off with our testimonials in a really simple example. add a title in, which is going to be the first element on our page. You can see there's our post title. If we select this, we've got the option for settings, which we can choose. And then on the right-hand side, all of the settings are available for this particular element, this particular piece of our form. So you can see we can drop in a field label. So by default, you can see this is pulling in post title, but obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's change that to testimonial title. If you want to add a description in so you can help people, you can do that here. You can also set the post status at this point as well. So we're going to set this to be pending review. We'll leave the default author as it is, which is associated with my account, because these are testimonials into a custom post type. We're not going to create user accounts for them anyway, so that doesn't really matter. It'll just be associated with, in this example, me as an admin, but you could easily set up a user role specifically to handle all of these, and then just choose them from the drop-down list. Then if you want to, you can use the logged in user as the author. For this example though, let's uncheck that. We want to keep it associated with our default post author. Post category is irrelevant in this example, so we'll leave that as it is, and we'll leave the other options there as well. You can hop into appearance and you can change the placeholder text if you want to add that in. You can choose where you want the actual title to be displayed. So if you use a placeholder, you may also want to hide the actual title. However, from an accessibility point of view, you're probably better off leaving the visible titles to be displayed as they are. Even though it looks nicer with a placeholder, from an accessibility point of view, it generally tends to be better to have it set up as the actual title. You can add a custom validation message, custom CSS, and you can change the field size between small, medium, and large. As you can see, if we change it, it's very obvious what it's doing. So we'll leave that set as large in this example. You can hop into advanced and you can add an admin field label if you want to inside here. You can set a default value. If you want to, you can use these short codes. We can drop this down and we've got these merge tags inside here for the date, embed, post page title, and so on. For this, again, we're going to leave this as it is. We're going to set this to be visible because obviously we want it to show up, but you could have hidden fields or administrative fields inside here as well if you want to, and they can be populated dynamically. Again, we don't need to worry about that. And finally, you've got conditional logic should you want to use it. Next up, we want the actual testimonial itself. So again, we're going to come over to add fields, come down to our post fields, and we're going to use the body field, which is going to be the content itself. So again, we'll click to add that in, change this from post body to make more sense. We'll open up our options. So again, we're going to come over to the right hand side. We'll change this from post body. We'll set this to be to testimonial. Again, you can add whatever options you want inside here. You can see it's pre-filling out the pending review and so on. So we don't need to go through the same thing again. Appearance, again, perfectly fine. Advanced, if you want to change anything inside there. If you want to allow people to use the rich text editor, you could do that and they'll get some formatting options. Again, it depends on what you want to do. For this, we're going to keep this incredibly simple. So there's our first two fields. Next up, we need to add in the featured image so they can upload their actual avatar profile picture. So let's come over to our add fields. So we're going to come to our advanced fields and we're going to choose the file upload option. So again, we'll click to add that in. Now we can set any parameters we want. So again, let's choose our settings, come into general first of all. We're going to change this from file. We'll put profile picture. We'll drop in the allowed extensions because obviously we want to limit this to the type of files they can upload. So we're going to just set in the image, the common ones like JPEGs, PNGs, WebP, and so on. We don't want multi-file uploads, but you could do that. You can also set the maximum file size you want to upload. Let's set this to something like 2 megabytes. We're going to set this to be required, so they have to use it. And again, we can set any options we want, come into advanced. All those options are available should we want them. So now we've set up the basic fields that are all part of the normal WordPress. Now we've got a couple of custom fields we need to add in for the actual name of the person and for their role. So again, let's come back to our add fields. This time we're going to come down to custom field and select that from the list. So you can see we've got a post custom field. We'll choose our settings, come into general. We're going to change this now to author name. You can see we've got the field type. So what we can do now is we can set everything up inside here to grab the relevant information from our ACF custom meta fields. So what we need to do is choose between existing or new. Obviously, we've already created it, so we're going to set this to be existing. We can choose the options and automatically it's populated those custom ACF meta fields and any other fields you may have included like bricks, font, faces, and so on. So we're going to choose the author's name. Then you can see we can choose to things like input masks. If you want to see, you may be using phone numbers and you want to have a specific format, you could use the input mask here and you can easily come in and select the kind of mask that you want. So you can see like zip codes, tax IDs, and so on. Pretty cool. And you can create custom ones should you want to. We'll uncheck that. We don't need it. We're going to set this to be rules, to be required. Come into appearance, again, we can change anything here. Advanced, again, we can change anything we want there as well. So we've now connected that field up to our custom field. Let's repeat the same process now for the author's position. Choose our custom field. Again, select the options, come into general and change this. Leave everything set as it was. We change the custom field for the author's position in this example. Again, everything else can be left set to be required. We don't need to worry about the appearance and everything else. It's all done. So we've now going to save this. So we created the basic part of our form. So now we can handle the other things that we need to do with the settings. So let's come into our settings section, come into form settings, and now we can choose what we want to do. So we've got a range of options on the left-hand side for settings, confirmations, and so on. So we can customize all this should we want to. So if we take a look at the form settings, you see a lot of this is what we saw when we set everything up right back at the beginning. So the name of the form is here. We can add in a description at this point if we want to, if we didn't at the beginning. So let's do that. There we go, that makes sense. You can see we've also got global settings, things for the form layout, so the position of the label, the descriptions, and so on. You can then set up a validation summary. You can require field indicators, how you want to display it. So we can say we put an asterisk in there. Required is set for the word required, or we can set a custom one, apply class names. So we're going to leave pretty much everything we want here as it is. You can see we can require users to be logged in, which is great from a security point of view. So I would recommend you do that on a live site. So I'll set that option there, and you can see we can require a login message. Up to you how you want to handle this. What we are going to do as well is set the anti-spam honeypot, and then we can choose how we want to handle it. So if this is flagged as spam, do we want to not create an entry so it doesn't add anything into our database and store any information? Or do you want to create an entry and mark it as spam, just in case we get some sort of false positives and so on? I'm going to leave this to be not create. We hit save settings. Then we jump into our confirmation section. In here, you can see we've got our default confirmation. We can change this. Obviously, it makes no sense to say thanks for contacting us when we've created a testimonial. So let's change that message. So there's our custom message. We don't have to use this though. This will just sort of pop up at the end of the form and say thank you very much for submitting and so on. We could, if we wanted to, set them to go to a specific page. It's entirely up to you. So you may want to go to the testimonials page or whatever if you had auto submit. You can easily come in and say pass field data via the query string as well, or you can, if you want to, redirect anywhere you want on your site. We're going to stick to the simple confirmation message. Now, you'll also notice that we've got the little options to add in custom information. So instead of saying thanks for submitting, we can just click inside there and we'll just personalize this a little bit. So we'll click and we'll say we want to have the author's name. So we'll say thanks author's name, comma, for submitting your testimonial, and admin will now review it. So we've personalized this a little bit, just grabbing that data from our form. Pretty cool, pretty simple to do. We'll save our confirmation, hop into notifications, and now you can set up how the admin will be notified when a new testimonial has been submitted. So you can see this is currently active by default. You can come in and you can customize this however you want to. So you can have it to be an admin notification. You can send where the emails go. Again, we've got these dynamic tags that allow us to pull in any merge information. So if you're used to working with any kind of email marketing and so on, this is all be very familiar to you. So you can fill this out and then they will be notified when something has been added to the site. And again, you can see we've got a range of different options inside here for enter an email, send to select a field, configure routing, and so on. So you can really get quite granular with this. And you can even come in and you can filter down exactly who gets information and so on. Pretty powerful stuff. Personal data. Now, obviously, depending upon where you are in the world, I'm based in the UK, so GDPR is something we need to be aware of when any kind of information is submitted. You can see we can choose how we want to handle this information. So do we want to prevent the storing of IP addresses? Well, I'm going to say yes, because that's a certain level of anonymization. Pretty cool to see that. But then we've got the retention policy. Do you want to retain entries indefinitely, trash them automatically, or delete them permanently automatically? It's up to you how you want to delete it. Obviously, we're working with a testimonial. We want it to stay on the site, so we have to have that information displayed. Post creation. This allows us to handle various different aspects of adding new content in. So let's say add new. I'm going to change this to add a new testimonial. You can see we've got the post settings then. How do we want to handle this? Well, we're going to say this is going to be public. We're not password protected for this. You can choose then where this is going to be inserted. So we're going to say testimonial for this example. And you see now that pulls up what do we want to do, the status. We're going to set this to be pending. Date, we'll leave the entry date, that's perfectly fine. And the author is going to be the logged in user, but we can change that to a specific author we want to. So we may say we want to use Paul C, like I said at the beginning. There we go. And now as we scroll down the page, you can see this is where our post content comes in. So we need to do a little bit of work here to set up everything, how it's all going to be mapped. Now you see the first parts are already done for us. So our testimonial title is there, our testimonial content is there. Now our featured image, we're going to select the option and we're going to say profile picture, which is the name of the field that we gave it for the file upload. You can see that allows us to choose everything we want. Then we've got our custom fields. So the first thing we're going to do is select from here. We're going to say author's name. Select the field and we're going to choose the option for author name. We'll add another one in. This is going to be our author position. Again, we'll select our author role from there. But we've basically now mapped all the fields to the relevant information from our form to the data we're going to store inside our WordPress database. So now if we click on Save Settings, so now our form is all created, everything is mapped correctly. The next thing we need to do is embed this into our design to be able to use it. Now I'm using bricks as I said earlier on, but you don't need to. You can use generate blocks, you could use Gutenberg, Elementor, whatever you want. And we can choose the embed option under our form. So we'll choose this and you can see we can set up anything we want. We can choose to add an existing content to any page or post that we want. So we can choose between pages and posts and insert our form like that. We can create a new page or post and again insert our form if we want to. Or we can use the shortcode option down the bottom. That's what we're going to do. So we can copy our shortcode, head over to our page, and we're now ready to put that shortcode in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a shortcode. And all we need to do now is paste the information in. So there's our testimonial form inserted into our design. Now you'll see we've got a duplicate heading here. We've got submit a testimonial and add a new testimonial. So what if we don't want to use this part of Gravity Forms? Well, we can use various different switches to enhance what we can do. Now I don't want to go into too much detail here. There's a lot of options. I check out the documentation on how to use it. But what we're going to do is we're going to simply add a little bit of code at the end that says title equals false. And what that will do is that will just simply disable the title for this form and allow us to use the title we've created inside Bricks to give us more control over the formatting inside the tool that we're using. So now all we need to do is save this and test it out on the front end of our site. So again, we're back onto our testimonial page, come into submit testimonial. There's our testimonial page ready for us, our form, so we can fill out our details. And we've now filled everything out. Submit our testimonial. There's our thank you very much. And now we can go and take a look. So back into our testimonials, you can see there's the new testimonial. Again, we can quick edit, set this to be published and update. And back on our testimonial page, you can see there's our new testimonial added into our testimonial section. It is that simple. Now, that's a simple example, but what if you want to create something more comprehensive where you want to be able to allow people to use a front-end dashboard setup to add in actual content into standard WordPress posts? Let's take a look at that next. So we're going to go through this quite quickly because there's a lot of information that's exactly the same as we've already seen. So let's create our blank form, give it a name, create our form, and again, we're going to use our options from the post field on the right-hand side. So we'll add our title, we'll add our body, we'll add in category this time, we'll choose our post image, and there's the basics of our form setup. So now we can just configure and make sure everything is set up the way we want. So again, choose our post title, set our post status to draft. For this example, it would make more sense to set this to be the logged in user is the author. So we'll leave that checked. We'll set this to be required. Come to appearance. Again, if we want to tweak anything inside here, we can do. Inside advanced, again, everything else is set up the way we need it to be set up. Let's choose our post body. General, everything looks pretty good inside there. Again, we need to set this to be required. We're going to come into appearance. Everything's fine inside there. Into advanced, we're going to set this to use the rich text editor to give them at least some control over formatting. It just makes a little bit more sense. And again, we can leave everything as it is for now. Come to our post category, and again, we're going to check everything. So the general looks pretty good inside there. You can see we can choose what kind of field type we want, whether this is a drop down or checkboxes. So we can say checkboxes for this because they may be able to select multiple different categories. We'll leave it set to all categories, but if you wanted to filter things down to only specific categories, you could do that here. We'll set it back to all categories. Again, we're going to set this to be required. Appearance, everything looks good in there. Advanced, again, everything looks good inside there as well. And you can see this is already pulled in the relevant information for us. Finally, let's come down to our post image. We'll select that from the list. Come into general. Post image is fine, although we can change that to featured image. It makes a bit more sense. What image meta do you want to apply? We'll say alternative text, title, caption, description. It's up to you if you want to add those in. For this example, let's keep this really simple and just have the alt text and title. And we're going to say set as featured image, and it is required. Appearance is perfectly fine. Advanced, everything looks good inside there as well. So let's save our form. Let's jump into the settings. Let's take a quick scan through, make sure everything looks good. Add new post is fine. The position, everything is perfectly fine on there as well. Again, we'll leave the required field indicators. Now, if you've got longer, more complicated forms that may require someone to spend a little bit of time, you may want to give them the option to enable save and continue. Obviously, check out the information that's saying here for a little warning about using this feature. For this example, though, we'll disable it. You can limit the number of entries, you can schedule the form, and you can require the user to be logged in. Well, it makes sense to be logged in. Again, we can drop in a message, and we'll add the anti-spam again, and we'll say do not create an entry. Now, this is really, really simple and basic. And what I would recommend is, even though this says the user is logged in, I would recommend that when you create anything like this, that you have the page set up that requires the user to be logged in before they even see anything to do with the form. This just gives you that peace of mind. You've got an extra level of security. But I would recommend using it in conjunction with this anyway, just in case. Save our settings, come to our confirmations. Again, you can see we've got a default confirmation. We'll say change that. There we go. Save our confirmation. Again, notifications is all set up. So you can see we've got an admin notification, personal data information. So again, we'll say prevent the IP storage. We'll leave the retention policy as it is. Save our settings. Pop into post creation. Add new. And again, we just need to make sure that everything is configured correctly. So the type is post, that's fine. Status, we're going to change this to be draft. Entry date, again, we can leave that as it is. Author, logged in user. We don't want comments and so on. Now you can see everything for the post title, the body, that's all mapped correctly. Now we're not using any custom fields in this example, but if you did, you'd map them here exactly like we've just seen with the testimonials. We are using the taxonomies. So we're going to set the categories inside here. We're going to choose field value. Select the option, and we're going to say post category. Now, pretty much everything else just needs to be left as it is. So we can save our settings, and we've now created a front-end form to allow us to add content to our website. So again, let's add this to a page and take a look at how it all works. So let's go back to edit, choose the embed option. We'll copy our shortcode. We'll hop over to our pages and create a new page. We'll edit this with bricks. We'll choose to add in the shortcode one more time. Then we'll drop in the shortcode we just created. So again, if we save this and preview it, you can see everything we need is included here. Post title, post body, all the categories we have available, the featured image, the alternative text, and the title. Once we finish, we can submit this. It will go into draft status. An email will be sent out to the administrator. They'll be notified to come and check it out. And if they're happy with everything, they can simply go and confirm and approve that post, and it'll be added to the website. If they need to make changes, all those options are available to them inside the WordPress dashboard. So this is a really simple example of how you can get up and running using Gravity Forms to be able to create front-end forms for a range of different use cases. Hopefully you found this useful. All applicable links are in the description. If you've got any questions, drop those in the comment section down below. As always, my name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.